Hi, this is Ian Heller, and you're watching or listening to What If I'm Right? Before I tell you a little bit about today's show, just a quick reminder to subscribe to this podcast. And if you like what you're hearing, then, well, like the podcast. All these very simple and ministerial things are vital for this show to continue to provide the quality of content that you deserve. Today's show tries to provide a respite from all the noise and anger and polarization plaguing so many of us in this nation and all around the world. So many people are angry and desperate. How we express and deal with those feelings dramatically impacts our daily lives and our relationships. How many times in your life have you buried feelings of anger or frustration or rage or desperation only to find it leaking out at times and places that you never expect or want? Sometimes these suppressed feelings come out in micro leaks, like when your partner asks you to pass the potatoes and you respond with a snarky comment like, "What's the matter? Can't reach 'em yourself?" Well, that's probably a micro leak. Annoying, manageable. Of course, there are other responses that might not be so innocuous, like when your partner asks you to, I don't know, pass the potatoes, and you decide to play Patrick Mahomes and throw a perfect spiral right at their face. Suppressed rage and anger and despair, like water, finding its level, always comes out. Whether it's a micro leak or you find yourself on the top of a roof with an AR-15, please, please, please don't do that. Don't do that. But it's going to come out. These days, we all seem to be operating at 211 degrees Fahrenheit, just 1 degree away from boiling over. Rather than suppressing your feelings or exploding at exactly the wrong time, don't you think it might be helpful to have a safe space to explode? Somewhere you can know that you're not alone and it's okay to be pissed or sad or frustrated or enraged. Well, today's guest, Jack Holloway, felt the same way, except he came up with an amazing solution for himself and members of his community and wrapped it all up inside live doom metal music inspired by the original doom metal band Black Sabbath. So kick back, start screaming at the streaming, and learn about one person's effort to take the temperature down by creating a safe space for all of us to blow our tops. Hi, this is Ian Heller, and you are watching or listening to What If I'm Right? Today I have a wonderful guest. I keep on saying that, but I don't know. I just keep on having wonderful guests. Jack Holloway is a writer, musician, minister, and dog walker based in Brooklyn. They are the creator of Despair Sanctuary, a vigil for public grief, and author of Hands of Doom, the apocalyptic imagination of Black Sabbath. Um, I am very excited to talk to him about all of this, but before I even let him say a word, I just want to remind everybody the way this show grows is with your help. So please subscribe, like, love, adore, whatever you want to do, and do it on all the platforms. I don't care. They don't know that you're the same person liking it everywhere. It makes my streaming numbers go up. And that helps us bring to you the kinds of shows that people who are curious, who are looking for hope and want to find that hope within themselves through knowledge and from the rest of the world through connection. That's what this show is for. And that is why I'm so excited to have my guest, Jack Holloway. Jack, welcome to What If I'm Right with Ian Heller.
Wonderful to be here and, yeah, to join you in conversation. I like the approach of the show and, I like the subject matter, so I'm ready. Yeah.
And you're gonna just spread the word to your flock.
Of
Now
course.
you're on camera. You are being recorded. If you go back on this, this is not talking about God here, just talking about the law. Okay. We got a contract here. So Jack, tell me a little bit about Oh, by the way, one of my pet peeves in all of the podcasting is when somebody gets introduced and they say, talk about, I hate that. I really do. What I'd rather ask you is just the name Despair Sanctuary is a beautiful name, and it conjures up some very deep emotional feelings and a place for those feelings to have a safe space. So tell me a little bit about Despair Sanctuary, and then eventually we'll probably get into Black Sabbath and your music.
Yeah, so Despair Sanctuary, uh, basically, I had this idea back in 2023, um, where I was doing my taxes, and
Oh, now
it,
I get the despair part.
yeah, no, it's really it's funny how like ordinary this began. So I was doing my taxes, and I got a tax bill that it was just astronomically higher than I was anticipating. And I was kind of doing the math in my head of like how long I would be in debt, like based on like my budget and like how much I would afford to pay toward the debt every month. And I was like, the result, I was just so crushed. I was just so crushed. And I laid down and on the couch and put headphones on and blasted the album "Miserable" by Bong Ripper, and uh,
I will acknowledge I have no idea who Bong Ripper is, or so this is new for me.
yeah. So they're a doom metal band. That's kind of the genre. It's doom metal, which is like kind of the OG metal because Black Sabbath is the original metal band, and the original doom metal song is recognized like as Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. So it's like slow, like sludgy, like the guitar is low. It's like very there's lots of foreboding. It gives you that sense of doom. Um, so yeah, I was there. I was on the couch just feeling miserable and listening to Miserable by Bong. And I was like, this is like the way to do this. Like this is the way to like feel bad. Like I just got horrible news. Like I just got like told that I'm going to be in debt to the government for at least a year. Like that's horrible news. Like I can't just pretend like I'm okay after that. I think there's, shake it off. We kind of have like that mindset, we have this toxic positivity where
Yes.
we expect people to just be joyful all the time, or to be ready to be sweet all the time. So I was just sitting there and I was like, there ought to be a place where you can just come and do this, where it's like for an hour or so, like we're just going to sit and feel miserable. We're going to listen to miserable music and feel miserable things. And I I can't remember like the day that I came up with the title, like Despair Sanctuary, but like I was told when I was a kid in church, um that like, and this was such an absurd thing for an adult to say to a child, but like I was told that anywhere you were, that if you go inside of a place and yell sanctuary, that like no one can touch you. That like nothing like no one can harm you, no one can like,
That's very empowering. That's
yeah.
very empowering. That's a great lesson to learn.
Yeah, but it's also like, yeah, I mean, it's like legally, it's not legally binding.
Forget about
Like
legal.
a
It's just
robber's not gonna,
you feel, but you
yeah,
feel
like,
safe. Everything is perception. If that gives
right.
you this feeling of safety,
Yeah.
that's
So
not a
like,
bad thing.
So yeah, so I just had this idea of like sanctuary as like that was my first association with that word was like, oh, sanctuary is something that you say that like makes the space a safe space. Um, so like sanctuary safe space. And then of course like sanctuary city, like this is a place where like immigrants are safe, you know. Um, and or supposedly. Um, and so yeah, and then there's another doom metal band named Elder, and they have a song called Sanctuary. And it's this epic tour de force of a song, and it's incredible. And like two-thirds of the way in, there's this movement that is followed by the lead singer singing like Sanctuary in this very robust, desperate kind of way. And it's just so beautiful. It's so like enrapturing. So I was like, I had that like, it's like, yeah, but it's like it's not just a sanctuary, like, it's a sanctuary for despair. Like, it's a place where it's okay to not be okay. So it was like despair sanctuary. And, we offered it that October. It was October 7th, 2023. The October 7th. Um,
which is my wife's birthday,
wow.
and the invasion and the 1973 Yom Kippur War in Israel, my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, we kind of have the biggest war, two of the biggest wars in Israel on our birthdays. Yeah.
Well, what's crazy is the first Despair Sanctuary fell on October 7th, and then the first one this year was February 28th, and that was the day Israel and Trump declared war on Iran. Like
Wow.
attacked Iran.
And we think that
So,
that part of the world is not in charge of everything. It's still in charge of everything.
yeah, it's like our concern over that part of the world is like, yeah. Anyway, but so all that to say, uh Despair Sanctuary. Yeah, so we offered it and it got a great response, and then we've offered it I think like 4 times a year um since then. I've gotten several grants from different organizations, the Brooklyn Arts Council, um the Interfaith America, and then there's been media coverage. I mean, there was a feature about it in Harper's Bazaar, and the Brooklyn Rail covered it as well. I the New York Times is supposed to be covering the next one, so it's like it's really turned into something. Like I've tapped a nerve. I've touched a nerve. Yeah.
I also get the sense that, and I think a lot of people don't realize Brooklyn. And I'm a Manhattan guy. You know, I was born here, moved back when I went to law school, and I love New York City, and Manhattan is my home. But right now, it feels like so much that's happening with respect to the it's almost like a generation gap, but it's not based on generations. There's this gap, there's this polarization, and it feels like so much of the response is coming from Brooklyn. That isn't surprising given how large the population is and how varied it is, but there's just so much coming out of that borough, man. It is just astonishing. You just got to get a better basketball team, but other than that, it's just amazing. It really is. Really is.
Hey, Liberty is a great basketball team.
You know, you're right, but they're the New York Liberty playing in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Nets, they have taken Brooklyn as their actual home.
Uh-huh.
So you know, I'm kind of looking, but I get it. That's fair, and they are a good team. But anyway, so people found you. What did you learn? What did you witness in that environment that you created for people what I don't know if it's accurate or not, but from my perspective, people who are suffering and looking for a safe space to suffer in a community.
Yeah, I mean, I found a lot. I mean, there's so much like, every time it is such a deep well of just energy and, like, spirit and insight. Um, but there was especially one thing that kind of, like, evolved over time was the kind of audience participation. Because at first it was just, like, I had a playlist, I had some poems to read and some readers, and then I formed a three-piece metal band, and we were gonna do a live performance, and then we had an opener. So it was kind of just a very basic setup. And it was, as far as the audience was concerned, you just come and you sit, and then, I think at the first one, we did light candles. So, yeah, I invited them to light candles. I have different ways that you can participate, but, we kinda did it that way. It was more kind of meditative and low key, but then I, uh, I scheduled one for the Saturday after the election, after the 2020 election. Not the 2020 election, the 2024 election. Um, and I did that, like, in February, because at the time, Joe Biden was still in the race, and I was like, "Joe Biden's gonna lose, and everyone in New York is gonna be in despair." So, I scheduled a a despair sanctuary for the Saturday after the election. And then Kamala came in the race, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe she'll win, and we won't get a good turnout." um, but
Lucky
no,
you, look how it turned out.
yeah, lucky me, Trump won. Um, uh, so yeah, no, I mean, we had a great turnout that weekend, and I said, we had band rehearsal on Wednesday, and it was just kind of like an improvisational, like, drony metal band. It wasn't like songs, it was more atmospheric and ambient. Um, but on Tuesday, I was like, if Trump wins, I am going to, uh, for a portion of this performance, I'm going to scream. And he won, and then I screamed in rehearsal, and they were like, "You have to do this." And so I uh, I wrote a few lyrics, and then screamed at the Despair Sanctuary, and just like toward the end of the performance, and so many people were like, some people said they screamed along. Other people said they felt like they wanted to. Other people just said that they were really moved by that. Other people were turned off by it. They were like, I thought, like, this feels more rage than despair, which I was
Okay.
like, define the difference between the two of those,
Yeah.
like, if you can.
Can I
Um,
ask you how long you sustained the scream or how many scream? Because, like, just to scream, that's James Brown. But if you're talking about, like, screaming, how long did you sustain this that other people joined in?
yeah, so, well, I'm taking too long telling the story.
Oh, no, I
Um,
love stories. Take your time.
yeah, so a friend of mine, but yeah, one person especially was like, I I wanted the invitation to scream. And so
Mm.
I thought about that, and this year was the first time we actually did it. But in February, I was like, I want to do collective screaming. And so there, like, I opened a drone, and then people were invited to just drone along, and so people were just kind of humming. And then I said, "You are invited to scream." And one thing I learned from Despair Sanctuary is that the sound of an entire group of people screaming at once is the most horrifying thing imaginable. Like, it is so horrifying. It's
Wow.
so like, oh my god, this is hellish. This is hell. Like it was like, ugh, like what?
The fire and brimstone.
Yeah, it was so, but
Wow.
it was so real. You know, you feel
Yeah.
like you're in a movie.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's like that is extremely powerful. Like when we did that, I was like, we have to do this every single time. So it's interesting that for something like we didn't do it for so long, but now that we've done it twice, it's like it feels like it's such an essential part of Despair Sanctuary. Um, but yeah, I mean that's it's like the screaming is when you actually start screaming, you realize how powerful your vocal cords are. You know, like when sometimes we get like a a misconception because like we talk a lot and then we lose our voice, you know, like or like we sing a lot, we lose our voice, or we yell a little too much and then we lose our voice. But like if you actually want to just scream, like there's a lot of internal power there. And like I think that's what's like so beautiful and cathartic and powerful about it is like it gets you in touch with like the actual energy that is like stored within your body, and it shows you, it reveals to you like how powerful you are. And yeah,
And
so
and if you don't
yeah,
mind,
that's
just to
just
add this
a little.
part, which is we often disconnect the physical from the emotional. The scream connects those. It makes us understand that the physical and the emotional are intertwined i- to such an extent that they are one and the same, that they are just kind of mirror images of one another or just different approaches to heal or to protect, because that's what a scream is for. It's like crying. It's supposed to make you feel in control of something and to feel like you are powerful enough to overcome whatever horror it is that you are confronted with. It is so powerful to know that your body is so powerful.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Did you ever speak with anybody with background in scream therapy, which I think had become relatively mainstream for a short period of time, either in the 60s or 70s?
Yeah, Primal Scream.
Right, primal scream.
I didn't like not in any kind of preparatory way, but someone actually when the announcement went out and the advertising was happening, uh a therapist reached out to me about one of his clients and said like, I want to recommend that my client go to this, like can you ensure that like, and but he's like special needs, um you know, can you be there to like assist him in any way or whatever. And I mean that was really great. I mean this was like it turned out to be someone who might be like living in a nursing home or might be like homeless, like um partially blind, like he had a walking stick. So it was like and it's a wide range of people who show up, you know,
Bet.
like
A lot of people have
it
rage, a lot of people have despair.
yeah, yeah, it's like you would think maybe it would just be a lot of like metalheads, but like it's a wide range, old, young, you know, like um yeah, very diverse. And then like yeah, like we've got homeless people who come, we have uh you know, mental patients who come, so it's like um it is real, like it is a real tool that we have. I think we need more tools. Like I think we think so much in terms of like um individual responsibility and like mind over matter, you know, like we think very stoically, we think in terms of like your mindset determines what you're capable of and all that. So it's like it's all about changing your perspective. And despair sanctuary is acknowledging, like, actually sometimes the occasion is despair. Like, actually sometimes we have negative energy and we have to expend our negative energy in some way,
Yeah.
uh, that cannot be done in like a happy, positive way.
And by the way, um, it's not even just allowing that despair out. It's before that, it's acknowledging that the despair is so present in your life at that moment that it needs and it and despair and rage, they really can't live within confines. They need to be let go because they just consume you if you keep on burying him down. And the only way to not be controlled, in my opinion, and I'm not a therapist, I don't even play one on a podcast, but my opinion about rage and despair is that unless you allow yourself a healthy, non-violent towards others or yourself way of allowing that to manifest itself, you're just pretty much kicking the can down the road. It will come out. You'll either kick the dog, you'll get on top of the roof and start firing down into the masses. You'll write a suicide note. Like these things, left silenced,
Yeah.
can create more havoc than if you allow a safe space to let it run free. And also, I love the idea, unlike scream therapy, at least my understanding of it, this is about communal scream. That has to feel so empowering, not only from the perspective of your own internal angst, but to see you're not alone. We're pack animals. You're
Yeah.
a dog walker. You've seen that. That's, we're pack animals. Other people showing despair and rage makes us feel, I think, welcome in having those same feelings and powerful to overcome them in time with help.
Yeah. And it's dispelling isolation, like, I mean, and
Yes,
where but nowhere else, like, no one else is doing it. Like, no one else is offering, like, come scream here in a
right.
room. Like, you just can't do that anywhere. And if you did do it, they would call the cops on you. You
That's
know?
right. Why should your anger feed mine? And so, you can see the perspective of the person who doesn't want to listen to your screaming. I get that. I don't want to unless I want to scream with you. So going down the street and screaming, I don't want you doing that. Going into some sanctuary where everybody is invited to allow that out. Everybody is taken into account. So I think that that's wonderful. By the way, it's funny that you mentioned, and I think one of the reasons why Brooklyn, among other things, it just has this larger world perspective on what a community is. This doesn't take place in Brooklyn, but when I was playing out with my band, my stuff wasn't metal. I was really mine is more R&B. Is all my music, R&B and funk. And I played at CBGB's, and CBGB's was on the Bowery before it became a very she place to be. It was where all the Bowery bums, all the alcoholics, and I shouldn't say all, many alcoholics and homeless people would be. And one of the things that the owner of, I've forgotten his name, was like Skelly something. But one of the things that the owner at CBGB's did was, if you were a homeless person on the Bowery, you didn't have to pay a cover. You just come in, you listen to music, man. And I remember when when I came in, there were a bunch of metalheads, but not nice ones, like people that felt like they wanted to kill us, particularly because my bass player was black, and they were like staring at him. And he said, "Man, I got this." and he starts right in their faces, and they back off. Meanwhile, a couple of homeless guys come into the front of the room, and after me singing a few songs, I had the greatest compliment that I ever had as a lead singer in a band. This guy comes in, he says, "White boy can sing!" And I'm like, that's the kind of response that you're not going to get from people who are trying to hold back. And it just is so, it feels so genuine. It, and so when you have all different kinds of people who express themselves in all different kinds of ways, and we allow and accept and invite that, it makes for a much more compassionate world, in my opinion. So I love that you have set that up for the people in your community. Tell me a little bit if you wanted to say so. I don't want to
No, go
get in
ahead.
your way. I would love to get a little sense of what you found in Black Sabbath. It brought me back to my college days when they were out. Well, they were before college for me, but it brought me back. And those days you didn't get the lyrics on Spotify. And so you had to figure them out. And half the time you had no idea. But I'm reading through the lyrics now and I'm going, damn, these guys had so much to say. They really did. And so I'm wondering what brought you to Black Sabbath. What was that journey and where has it brought you throughout that time?
Yeah, so I discovered the song War Pigs when like just before I went to grad school. When I went to Union Theological Seminary here in New York. And I just loved the song. It was just one of the coolest, heaviest songs I'd ever heard. So I was just kind of obsessed with it. And then like when I started listening to the lyrics, I was like, this is Christian. I was
Mm.
like, this is this is told from a Christian perspective.
What do you
Like,
mean? Bring me, I don't know what you mean by that.
yeah, so uh Day of judgment, God is calling. On their knees, the war pigs calling, crawling. Gosh, I'm just butchering this. Day of judgment, God is calling. On their knees, the war pigs crawling, begging mercy for their sins. Satan laughing spreads his wings. Uh, and then there's um, I'm forgetting the other one, but like even that is like Day of judgment, God is calling. The war pigs are begging mercy for their sins. It's like Satan's there, but like he's laughing, but it's like he's not in control. Like Judgment Day is God. Like that's a Christian concept, you know? I mean, it's not an exclusively Christian concept, but in this framework of like sins and the Satan and all that, like that's all like Christian. So I was so kind of blown away by that because I was thinking Black Sabbath, that's this satanic band, you know, that's this evil, you know, Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, you know. I thought I was gonna get in and it was gonna be like the band Venom. The band Venom, you know, all of their songs are like Hail Satan and, you know, like we're demons and all that. So like I thought it was gonna be like that. I was not expecting it to be so overtly like apocalyptic, like Christian apocalyptic. So concurrently, I was studying apocalyptic literature. Like I was studying the book of Revelation and I was studying ancient Near Eastern mythology. You know, I was studying the book of Job, which is where we get the character of Satan for the first time. Um, and
And perhaps Dante's Inferno, I'm assuming,
no,
or
I
no?
didn't get.
No?
I was Dante. That's later, you know.
Yes,
So
I know, but it's, yeah.
I
You're
am
going to the biblical ages,
yeah, I'm
basically?
much
Okay,
more into ancient
got it.
literature. Um, uh, so yeah, and so I was like, I was reading, and I was discovering that apocalyptic literature was originally conceived as a way of like as a revolutionary counterpoint to the empire. Uh,
By whom?
it's by, I mean, various but Jews, the- like in the Maccabees, like during the Maccabean revolution, but then later Jews under Roman occupation.
Okay,
Um,
so the first is pre-Jesus. The second could be during or right after Jesus, I'm assuming. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, it's like basically from the time of maybe the Persian era to but especially the Greek era, that it's we get the development of apocalyptic literature, and then the New Testament is of course evidence of like a new formation, a new kind of offshoot of apocalyptic literature that is more than just Jewish. It's Christian. It becomes like its own thing. Um, that was a reductive way to put all that, but and in any way, so what I was realizing was it was anti-imperial literature. That it was like it was like the empire had come to appear so totalizing, so in control of all of life, that the imagination becomes the whole world is destroyed and a new world will come to be. And like this is God's promise, the promise of the kingdom of God, like, and this is where messianism comes from. This is where like the idea of the kingdom of heaven comes from. Um, so I was like, wow, we have that in the ancient world, and then in the 1969, we have Black Sabbath coming out with War Pigs, which is also apocalyptic, Day of Judgment. God is calling all this, and but it's a critique of the conservative Christian war machine. That like it it's taking Christian literature and kind of like it's taking the literature of like the conservative establishment that is making war, like Nixon, who has the support of um Billy Graham at the time of
Right.
the Vietnam War. So it's like he's taking Billy Graham's texts, Geezer Butler, that's the bassist in Black Sabbath, who wrote the lyrics. He took Billy Graham's apocalypticism and turned it on its head, and is like, actually, it's the war pigs who are going to hell. It's the war pigs who will be punished, and
Wow.
God is about justice and peace on earth. And I
Y-
was like,
Wow. It's like
incredible.
like your head, your mind explodes. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I had another guest recently, Mark Unger, and we talked about the importance of art and culture. Well, art in culture to try to help us, the rest of us. And I am an artist myself, but of course, most artists get a tremendous amount of input from other artists. And one of the things that we talked about was the perception of reality that art creates. That reality is actually not what we interact with. We really interact with our perception of reality. And so when we have artistic interpretations, they help us, for better or worse, they help us figure out our common goals and our common enemies. And to hear you speak about, let's say, the first and second diaspora of the Jews as being one of the, or two of the times in our history that spawned this apocalyptic vision out of misery, out of suffering, out of fear, it just reminds me, and I'm a sociologist, and I feel like, wow, we've never changed emotionally. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we are what we've always been. And it almost always requires art, the arts, to help focus our rage, our hope, our passion, our community. And that's why when I look at what I do with my guests on this show is we need to alter our understanding of reality to change our perception from the polarization that has been imposed upon us and we've kind of readily just eaten up, and to say no, that's part of our history, but another part of our history is that it reverses, and art helps in that reversal, just like it helped create the second civil rights movement in the early 20th, mid 20th century, when a song, uh, uh, Strange Fruit, awakens the entire population of the United States to something that had been going on for decades, generations, which is lynchings. And they turned a blind eye to it. But the song made them examine themselves. Art does that. And what you're doing, and I really mean this genuinely, what you are doing is helping us feel the rage, allow that to come out, or despair, allow it to come out, but then use that message to create a community of hope. I'm just always so grateful to people who help us transition from despair to hope. And I think the arts do that. And apparently they've been doing it for 2,500 years and more.
Yeah.
So getting back to, and I know that there was a long uh, monologue there, but
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
eh, um, I just am always impressed by that. So you've always been, how long have you been a musician, and when did you start seeing your music as a form of messaging, if you have, to help the rest of us, I guess, confront some of our demons in and outside of us?
Yeah, well, I've been a guitarist since I was 13, and, so, yeah, it's 20 years now, I'm giving away my age. Um,
Don't worry, I got you beat.
and, songwriter, basically since day one. I learned the guitar in order to write songs, and, but when I was 15, I really started to write songs because I discovered Bob Dylan, and, I, uh yeah, like a dad my dad's friend one of my dad's friends, was always talking about Bob Dylan, and so I heard my dad talking about wanting to listen to Bob Dylan because he never really had. So for his birthday, I got him, or for Father's Day, something, I got him, Highway 61 Revisited, and, um he listened to it, but after I put it on for him the first time and I listened to it, it was mine. Like, it was his, I gave it to him, it was my gift to him, but I was the one who just listened to it over and over because I just
Yeah.
couldn't get enough of it. And
What was his response? Before you tell me more about yours, what was his response to it, if you recall?
I don't really remember him having much of a response. I think
Yeah, didn't hit him.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
there were certain things. And then after that, I feel like most of his Bob Dylan he heard by way of me because, like, I just went through the songbook and learned every song I could learn. Um, and he was the one who, Bob Dylan was the one who kind of alerted me to the possibility of music functioning prophetically, like music as a prophetic voice, because that's what he did in the 60s. So many of his songs were civil rights songs. And the power of like the combination of like a message and a great melody. He, he, is the best at that. He was, uh, Yeah, I mean, he's still alive. He's just the best. Um, but yeah, I think uh, I wouldn't even say you said that thing about hope. I wouldn't even say that like that's like specifically like my aim. Uh, when I'm like with the music that I do for Despair Sanctuary, for example, um, the music I do for Despair Sanctuary is like I am trying to give voice to such a depth of uh ill feeling, such a depth of negativity that it encompasses all of the feelings of negativity in the room. I if you can imagine, like someone comes in and they're like, maybe they're a little depressed about what's happening in the world, or they just got broken up with, or something, or they just had a disappointing conversation with their parents or a significant other, and they are feeling just like moderately sad, and they come into Despair Sanctuary and they have a nice place to like feel their grieve their feelings. But like somebody else comes in and they're like suicidal. They are convinced that everything is meaningless and the world is hopeless and dark and life is not worth living. And like, I want to be the voice of both of those at once, like in my music. I want to be able to express that depth of negativity such that everyone can feel that their negativity has been expressed. Like that I'm kind of the spokesperson of the despair in the room.
It seems like you're almost the person who holds the key to Pandora's box. You allow all of these things that have been locked inside. You take out your key and say, have at it.
Yeah. I imagine I kind of have like this vision of like uh the church itself kind of opening and like swallowing the negative energy. That like it becomes a kind of hell mouth that like all the despair can descend into hell through the church, and then like we close the mouth back up again. Like, I mean, if you want it more Christologically, if you want it more traditionally Christian, it's like Jesus taking the sins of the world upon himself on the cross. Like that's what the church is kind of doing with the people's despair. um and I don't like the thing about hope. I just don't want to give people the sense, the idea that I'm like trying to trick them into feeling better, like or like um because it's a secular, I call it a secular vigil. It's not a specifically Christian service. It's like it happens at the church, but it's open to all people. And I don't want to give people the feeling that like I'm like trying to like convert them on the sly or something,
Right,
like
right,
give them the gospel, like, oh, here's the gospel, like
right.
you
See,
thought you were here
Jesus
for
helps you if
despair.
you just were all willing to listen. Right. I understand that. But,
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I want to preserve a non-judgment. I want to preserve like maybe you don't get to hope. Maybe you don't get there. Maybe you leave and you don't feel better about the world, but you feel, at least for a moment, like you've expended that negative energy. I just like I I don't like the again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about toxic positivity. Like the idea that like everything has to come back to hope. Like everything has to like carry a hopeful message at the end of the day. I think feeds back into that.
I hear you, and I certainly there's nothing to disagree with there, but it also doesn't feel like it's the last step. It feels like it's the first, because the idea of only seeing, I'm not talking about what you do, I'm talking about how people feel. The idea that all there is for you is to be this vessel that gets filled with angst and hate and meanness, and the one thing you have is an opportunity to express your rage or despair, and so now the vessel gets emptied and then it gets refilled. And I understand that, but from my perspective, yeah, this is where you are now ready to find hope. And I understand particularly how sensitive you have to be to not making this feel like you're trying to increase your flock. I understand that you have to be careful about that. But I also imagine that the idea that a person is now, at least for a moment, feeling like that cup of despair is empty,
Yeah.
that you can fill it with other things now. You
Yeah.
can
I
continue to
mean,
fill it with
that's the
despair.
irony about Despair Sanctuary to me, is that it's hope by way of despair. Like,
Yes,
you it's like you get to positivity by way of negativity.
yes.
So that when I'm writing, I'm always trying to muster just the ugliest, darkest, most horrendous music that I can possibly
Hmm.
produce, because I'm I'm sticking to the bit. Like, I'm not tempering it ahead of time. Like, I went to a poetry reading that was all about rage, and I went to it, and there was just way too much levity. Like, every single poet was, like, cracking jokes, and their poems were very soft and tender, and I was like, "Where is the rage?" You know, like, so I think it's important to, like, commit to the bit and
Like,
really,
where is Sylvia Plath when you need her?
yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You shouldn't, I understand not being in the business of being all things for all people. I think actually that usually dilutes the message and then reduces the real value of what you're trying to provide. But I also understand that this is a piece of your journey and can't represent the only method for finding purpose, is that you're not enraged right now. And when I get to my cup runneth over with anger, I'll get to pour it out again and then fill it up again. And that feels a little bit too, well, it's kind of like having the yin without the yang, where without despair there can be no hope. Without hope there can be no despair. If those are opposites, if you want to just see those as opposites, but the the Taoist perspective is they both must coexist. You cannot be with one without the other, and so you are giving space for the one that people don't seem to be comfortable with, and that is the despair.
Yeah.
Because the hope is not only permitted and welcome in all, basically anywhere, but it's almost like if you don't show the hope, you're not welcome. And that's
Yeah. And that's what I was talking
that's
about.
unsettling and unfair.
Yeah. And yeah, I have I'm writing a book right now that's sort of like kind of has come out of the kind of theological and philosophical reflection that I've done on Despair Sanctuary. And one of the things I say is, hope fuels reform. The failure of reform gives way to despair. Despair clears the path for revolution. So it's like, only when we actually get to the point where we are honest about the depth of the problem, the depth of the negativity in the world that is there, uh, can we hope to change the world into a different direction, to truly change the world. Because I think the notion of just like constant reformism, constant like subtle changes, like the trying to make change feel imperceptible, is a reinforcing of despair, because we're always given the same responses and the same solutions to the same problems, and that repetitive, like, oh, let's try this. Like, we tried that last time, didn't work. Like, oh, well, how about we try this? Like, that's the same thing that didn't work last time. Like, that constant back and forth is what is producing this despair. And I think unless we actually get to a moment where we own that despair and we let ourselves have that moment, and we let ourselves truly look at the honest totality of things, uh, then we can actually assess what needs to change better than we have before.
It's interesting because I I'm not an historian, but I'm a bit of a history buff, and I also, as an attorney and a sociologist, I have a fair amount of background in the in American history, particularly as it pertains to things like the Constitution and laws that and our social interactions. And when the nation was being created in the mid to late 18th century, Thomas Jefferson had proposed that there is every 20 years there should be a revolution. He wasn't talking about a bloody revolution. What he really was talking about was every 20 years, the next generation should have both the opportunity and the responsibility of creating what it feels is the best way forward, given the changes that have happened in the 20 years prior. And so he was actually recommending what might be considered a constitutional convention, assuming we want a constitutional democracy in the first place. But every 20 years, let's get together, talk it over, see if the nation is still created in a fashion with a structure that speaks to us now. He didn't win that one, and maybe it's better. I don't, it's hard. We don't know what we don't know. But in those 20 years, you never know how things might change where people say, oh, wow, wait a second, slavery. Um, there are a lot of people who like it, but it does seem like it's feeling wrong now. And rather than having
It's
to
feeling
sit
rough.
with that for 70 years or 80 years before actually having a civil war that caused more deaths to Americans than all other wars combined, maybe we should have taken a little bit of a risk on solving this problem in a political revolution rather than a violent one. And so what you're talking about here, I think, is very reminiscent of the idea we need to have both opportunity and responsibility to examine ourselves in the context of current events, understanding how things were in the past, but understanding that the future is not what we expected it to be because it never is. So I love that you are in that business, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that the idea of, like, permanent revolution, the idea that, like, the it
I'd
can
call it
never.
periodic. I wouldn't say permanent. That sounds more like Hobbes to me. Everything is the state of nature, and we all have a war of all against all. It's like I don't need that shit.
Yeah, no, in, like, Marxism, it's a different concept of it, the concept just being, like, v history is not like, human activity is not a monolith, it's not a static thing that stays the same, it is changing and updating, and things are shifting and moving around, so there does need to be, like, an accountability of, like, are we still sticking to the principles that we said that we were sticking to, you
Well,
know?
he saw it as the dialectic, the two converging major issues that will eventually create synthesize into something else. The only issue is that he started out as a revolutionary. He didn't get anywhere. But as a philosopher, because there were no revolutions in his time that brought in what you would call Marxism or communism or socialism. That didn't happen until after his death. But what he did say was, this is a predictable violence that is going to happen because of two groups that continue to get further and further apart from one another. And eventually they're going to conflict and it's going to be ugly, or at least it's going to change things, we hope. So, from a Marxist perspective, it's kind of an organic, not Marx the revolutionary, but Marx the philosopher. He was seeing the dialectic as something that happens organically and eventually changes the world out of necessity.
Yeah, I think but to go back to something you said a minute ago, I think this is and maybe this is not a great place. I know we're uh coming to the end, and maybe this is not a great thing to do on a podcast about um polarization, but
Give
one
it a
thing I
shot.
don't love about the conservative impulse is that it it seems to place like like fully fledged pioneering adults in the far distant past, and then makes everyone in the future deferential dependence on them,
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
so like the Constitution, for example, like only the founders were real men with they only the founders were real adults.
Well, but that's
every
mythology.
everyone
That's
everyone
mythology.
everyone after the founders is has to we are it's our obligation to be children of the founders and to be
Yeah.
deferential to them and to obey them. So automatically like there's this mistrust of uh questioning, of doubt, of critique,
Change.
of change.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
it's so
absolutely
to
right.
me it's an infantilization of the human race.
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, they wrote into the Constitution precisely a means of enforcing it for generations to come by making it virtually impossible to amend the Constitution. What what people don't understand is even though the Constitution can be changed in Article 5, the way you do it is so hard. The first 10 amendments happened right after the revolution. The next big 3 amendments happened right after the Civil War. A bunch of amendments happened around World War I, World War II. Are you starting to notice a theme here? We only seem to make big changes in our Constitution when we are dealing with the post-apocalyptic uh, experience of war.
Yeah.
And that can't be, forgetting about what the founders wanted. I can't get into their brains any more than they can get into mine. But to create a means of change, but to limit it to only the worst hellish times that you make those changes seems pretty counterproductive.
Yeah.
So that's why I
To
say
bring
I
it back
agree with you completely.
full circle, you can almost say that like it's the consequence of suppressing negativity. It's
I
the
love that.
consequence of like you wait until things explode into violence and war to then go, oh, I need to deal with my despair, I need to deal with my negativity.
I love how you just brought that full circle. And it gives me an opportunity to segue into saying, I really hope that we get to continue our conversation because I think it's important to be able to discuss and examine the things that are making us very uneasy, agitated, unhappy, angry, because we cannot move past it until we acknowledge its existence. And we not just acknowledge it, but embrace it. We have to embrace our anger before we can let our anger go. And what you're permitting people and encouraging them to do, and I love the fact that you're doing it in a way that's non denominational. It's not to try and make a better world, but to give you an opportunity to feel better. That's all. Maybe you'll have hope, maybe you won't, but at least when you empty all of this anger, you'll probably feel a little better, at least for a little while. And man, that's worth everything. And so what you're doing is in Despair Sanctuary and with your music, which I think maybe I'd like the next time, I'd love to get more into your music because an artist is defined very frequently it comes out more purely who they are in their art. And so I'd love to examine that in another conversation if you would be so willing.
course. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a great honor.
It's been at least as much fun for me, and I hope illuminating for others. Whether they get hope out of it or not, I just think that they get something out of it, and I think that's important. So, Jack Holloway,
Wait, real
Despair
quick.
Sanctuary. I am looking forward to having you on again and promoting your shows and don't your music, and don't forget to help me get bigger too. Let's help each other because I think we can make a difference one person at a time. That's why I'm a professor. I can make a change in one individual that I teach every semester. Man, I'm happy. I'm happy. So thank you for everything that you're doing and for giving me some of your time. I am grateful, and I hope, in behalf of the people listening and watching, that I speak in their behalf as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Before you stop recording, when is the next Despair Sanctuary?
Yeah, the next Despair Sanctuary is August 15th at 8 p.m. That's a Saturday, and that's in Park Slope, Brooklyn, at the Gothic Church, Old First Reformed Church. It's a historic Gothic church just a few blocks from Prospect Park.
Emmett, well done. Got me. You caught me not doing a good job. So Emmett, well done. Jack, I'm glad that you got the opportunity to be a little more clear on the promotion, which I promised and then didn't come through. So fortunately, Emmett was there to save both of us. Thank you very much. You've
That's
been
my job,
watching
man.
or listening to, thanks, Emmett. You've been watching or listening to Ian Heller with Jack Holloway on What If I'm Right? And peace and love. And I'm going to go with this one because that means I love you. And for what you do, I love you.